Welcome everyone to this episode of the Palmetto Guardian. I'm Sergeant Chelsea Weaver.
And I'm Specialist Anna Grace Catoe.
And today we have a special guest. I'm going to let him go ahead and introduce himself, and then we're just going to get right into it. So,
I'm Sergeant Corey Outen, and I'm the NCOIC of the medical training team and the State 68 Whiskey Manager. If you know, 68 Whiskeys, combat medic.
Okay. Is it still called combat medic? Because I remember at one point you guys were saying that they changed the name.
Yeah, they changed it. It's a combat medical specialist now.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know why they're trying to change everything to specialist.
Well, so we used to be healthcare specialist and combat medics. It depended on where you landed in your MTO, what you were. So I think they just took the two and combined them together.
Gotcha.
So,
is there other MOSs in the military for medical that's not 68 whiskey, or is everybody 68 whiskey?
Oh, no, there's plenty. So the 68 whiskeys, it's a very versatile MOS. We do a lot, but there are other MOSs and ASIs out there. It's just like flight medics. They're still 68 whiskeys, but they have that additional skill identifier that, you know, puts them in that elite per se of medics. And then you have LPNs, so you can become an LPN, which is a different identifier, 68 series, and then there's all the way down to patient admin, med supply. So we basically have our own, you know, how you have your 42 Alpha, we have a patient admin, which is a 68 series MOS in its own. We have medical supply, which is a 68 Juliet. So there are different MOSs. And then once you go outside in the National Guard and you get into active duty in the reserves, which have more support MOSs versus the National Guard, you'll see a lot more, you know, cardiac technicians, things like that are secondary additional skill identifiers for the 68s.
Okay. So is it kind of like you enlist as a 68 whiskey, you go through all the training, and then once you go to whether it's your duty station if you're active or your unit if you're reserve or guard, there's just additional schooling that you can go to? Like, do you have to apply for it? Does there have to be an opening? Like, how does that work?
So some of them are like that. I know for a long time, flight medics, when you came in, you know, they were trying to get people that had experience being 68 whiskey and already had their paramedic card on the civilian side, certain things like that. I know that's how we were doing it in the Guard. But there was a lot of people I went to AIT with in 2010 that were going to be LPNs, but they had to do the 68 whiskey program first, and then they went on to Mike 6, which was their additional skill or their SQI. So it changes over. Medical MOSs, the MOS stays the same, but the additional skill identifiers, they come and they go all the time, especially as we transition through operating environments. Like when we ended the global war on terror, that changed a whole lot of things for the medical world, because that's how we've been operating under the same mindset, under the same umbrella for 20 years. And we realized that, hey, we might not need some of the things that we've been operating for our next conflict. Like, we've relied heavily on dust off in the global war on terror in the Middle East, and our next conflict, you know, the futures and people that are way smarter than I am, make way more money than me, are like, hey, we might not have air superiority in our next war. So let's start thinking about making ground medics more critical care equipped in knowledge and equipment. And so now we have an additional skill identifier for what's called DECM, or Delayed Evacuation Casualty Management. So it's basically prolonged field care. So sitting on a patient for 24 hours. Whereas before we didn't have that, because, you know, if we set up a 9-line, 10, 15 minutes, you either had dust off or you had Pedro, or one time we had a British helicopter land and casevac some people. So that was when I was in Afghanistan. But yeah, so it's ever changing. But the big MOSs stay the same, and that's why I say the 68 whiskey is so versatile, because we can plug and play. So we get that baseline knowledge, and then we can plug and play. We can either be with the infantry out there sleeping in the tents, or we can be in Med Command, you know, giving immunizations, or, you know, we could be running EKGs, or we could be, you know, out there giving Band-Aids to the engineers when they, hit their hand with a hammer. However, it's so versatile, and it's like you said, sometimes when you get to your unit, if there's a vacancy or a hole to fill, they'll be like, hey, you're going to go to this course. A big one that gets pushed around a lot is the immunization course. So every 68 whiskey can give immunizations as long as they go through their yearly immunization training. That's pushed down by Big Army, but there we have an actual additional skill identifier for an immunization coordinator. It's a couple-week course that they could go to, and so we push people out of that. It's kind of like going to MRT, things like that. If the unit needs it, they'll push you out to it, kind of thing. Or like the flight medic unit, you can apply and get into it, or you can be invited into it. And sometimes I've heard of people on the active duty side, they'll join with that in their contract, and their recruiters probably knows somebody or is pretty cunning and can get them a slot at a flight medic unit and get them in the school to start off with. But that's pretty that doesn't happen a lot. So usually you kind of have to know what you're talking about and prove yourself to get to that, because it is the elite of the elite of medics, basically.
So with the medics training and all that, you were talking about a yearly certification. Do the 68 whiskeys, regardless if they have all these other identifiers, do they have to do any type of annual training to keep up with certain certificates and stuff like that? But also, too, does their civilian, if they work like in the civilian sector, whether it's EMS or in a hospital or anything like that, does it transfer over to the military side and vice versa, like when they do the military training?
So we do have a biannual civilian certification that we have to keep up with. So the National Registry of EMT, whether you are a basic EMT, advanced EMT, paramedic, those are 3 levels. We're responsible to have at minimum a National Registry EMT basic. They give that to us. We take that. Well, I say they give it to us. We earn that. We take that test, that really difficult test at AIT, and it's a requirement to be a medic. It's a requirement to sustain it. So we have that biannual recertification period every 2 years on the 31st of March. So actually, we're coming up on it now. That we have to meet. We have to meet certain requirements, certain hour requirements, based on modules of learning, whether it be trauma, medical, special populations, OBPs, things like that we have to meet. And it varies based on what level of certification you are. So as you climb in certification, as you go from basic to advanced to paramedic or critical care, your requirements change, and it's based on the type of care that you will be providing. So paramedics have to have more pediatric hours, more airway hours, more cardiac. So they take classes like advanced life support, pediatric life support, pediatric advanced life support, things like that to satisfy those hours, because they are the more, I don't want to say critical or more knowledgeable, because there are so many EMT basics out there that have, such a vast knowledge basis. I don't want to say knowledgeable, that's the wrong word. They have their skill set is more advanced per se, and what they're supposed to know and what they're supposed to do versus what they do know. So we do have that. And then as you go into flight medics, they have a critical care certification, flight paramedic certification. Those things have to be recertified as well. Theirs on a different timetable. I believe it's 4 years. They have to do theirs every 4 years, and they have to meet it. And it's the same with us. There's so many civilian certifications out there that that we can obtain and through the military and through the civilian side. And that was one of the questions you asked. And that's something that's become really big over, I'd probably say the last 6 years, 7 years, is interoperability between civilian and military. So before we were 68 whiskeys, when we were 91 whiskeys, 91 Bravos, whatever, 90, I don't remember. I wasn't in there. I was always a 68 whiskey. They didn't earn National Registry EMT certification from AIT. They just got the medical training, and they became a combat medic, and they moved on with their life. So they had nothing to take with them as far as going to work in the civilian world. So if you were active duty, it's okay, it's cool. Like, you could do your job, but what happened when you retired, or what happens if you were National Guard or Reserves, you still had to go back through the same training that you just went through. And you're probably going through less training on the civilian side. It's more intense, you know how we do in the military. So it's more intense, it's more focused and in depth. But they changed that, and there's still a few people out there that were a part of that are still in. Most of them are retiring, but they all transitioned over, got their national registry. It was a requirement. And now everything pretty much talks to the civilian side. Should it be higher than an EMT basic certification? I think so. I think that we should be able to at least test for the EMT advanced certification, because the knowledge and the skill set of a 68 whiskey far surpasses what is required of an EMT basic. 68 whiskeys. For a long time, the state of South Carolina, paramedics, critical care nurses, they couldn't do a crike on a patient, and that's something that 68 whiskeys are taught to do blindfolded, basically, for the last 25 years in GWAT. And there's a difference. I don't think that they should be paramedics. I mean, if you are a paramedic, like if you go get your paramedic, that's awesome. I don't think we should be able to test for the paramedic, but at least the advanced certification, and then move on from there.
Okay. So you were saying that before it was 68 whiskey, it was, you said 91 series?
I'm pretty sure it was 91 whiskey, 91 Bravo. I want to say 91 Bravo is like a wheel vehicle mechanic. Maybe it's 98.
Well, they've changed so much over the years too, and now they're merging MOSs and all that stuff, so God only knows what it is. But when you enlisted, so you said you were always a medic, so you enlisted as a medic.
Yes, so I came in as a 68 whiskey, and fun story, my recruiter just retired last year, but fun story, I was 17, and I knew what I wanted to do with my life, and I wanted to be a firefighter. And I was a junior firefighter in Camden, South Carolina, in Kershaw County, and that's what I wanted to do, and that's what I wanted to list into the military as. So there were no slots. So my recruiter was like, hey, man, like, get you this medic, everybody's kind of cross-trained now. Like, he had it. He had the speech, man. He gave me the speech, and I believed him. And I am so thankful for that, because I'm here today because of it. And I ended up loving medicine, and ended up really enjoying it. But he was like, you can transfer later, when you get in, we'll get you MOS, we'll get you transferred later down the road. And I think probably about 5 years ago, the opportunity came to transfer, and I was like, nah. I came in as a medic. I ended up loving it. When I got out, I was working at the fire department, went to work at EMS, and that's what I've been doing in some sort of variant ever since. So for the past almost 13 years.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question is, what made you decide to be a medic? But I think that's a great story, because everybody's story is different, and it's crazy how one little thing can change your directory, but it's the best decision that could have ever happened to you.
Oh, absolutely. And it's funny, because I argued with my recruiter. I remember sitting there and sitting in the house and talking, mom's all nervous, baby boy's trying to join the Army. And, Dad was in the Army back during Vietnam, so Dad understands. Dad's just being quiet and letting the recruiter do his thing. Mom's like, take care of my baby. You better take care of my baby. And I actually argued with him. I was like, I don't want to do anything medical. I had a bad experience with the fire department on a call when I was kind of younger. Probably shouldn't have been there. And I was like, I don't know if I want to do this. I don't know if I want to do medicine. Medicine doesn't appeal to me. I was like, I want to fight fire. I want to walk inside buildings. I want to put water on fire, and I want to leave. And he was like, just hear me out. This is all we got. Like, unless you want to, be the infantry. And I was like, it does sound appealing, but this is going to get me closer to what I want to do. And so I chose it, and I ended up loving it.
So how did that leave you to becoming full-time in one of the, because you're kind of like an instructor with the, what's the course that you guys do?
So the medical training team, we have the 60 whiskey sustainment course, which is 12 days, ATARS driven course now. And it is what gives medics the hours and certifications to meet their civilian national registry recertification. They get CPR, which is a requirement. They get the different hours and various tables they need to meet the Army's requirements as well. So I'm the NCOIC now. I know the last time we had talked, I was the chief instructor, just kind of, same game, different name. I kind of moved more into an admin role with that as I took on the training NCO for a medical command as well. So I kind of moved more into an admin role with the medical training team at 60 Whiskey program. And I kind of, I've been doing this I started in 2017 so let me back up real quick because I'll start jumping around. In 2016, the Army mandated training per se. The way we do it now has to be, you have to have some kind of Army training. Before that, you could just recertify with your civilian education. If you worked EMS, you could use your hours that you got from going to trainings there. But the Army mandated in 2016, because there was so much fraud, that we start doing our own training. Plus, it kind of makes sense because what you see on the civilian side is not necessarily what you're going to see on the battlefield or on the military side, right? So on the civilian side, I'm not really worried about hot weather injuries as much as I would be at an annual training here, things like that. So yeah. And I kind of strayed away from the question a lot, and I'm sorry.
No, that's how this works, though. Like, we might start with one thing and it can lead to another, so you just never know. But no, I just think it's cool because, like, when you first enlist and everything, like when I enlisted, I never thought that I was going to be full-time. Like, I've done ADOS orders, I've deployed, and now I'm a technician. So, like, you don't realize those opportunities when you first enlist, and it's just cool to see how your journey goes. So I was just curious to see, like, how you got to that point because, I mean, that is a huge deal. I mean, your face is always, if it has something to do with medical, your face or your name is somewhere. So you're very...
I went from being somebody that nobody knew in a company to... Somebody told me the other day they were talking to General Jones, and he said I was a good guy or something like that. And I was like, General Jones knows me? Like,
yeah. Oh, they call us by our first names. Like, it's fun. It's crazy.
It's, you just don't understand the amount of reach that you have when you do something like things like this. And I've been doing it now since 2017. And I started out, I was actually I was ADOS at 251 on the C2 CRE mission. I was a medic, but also handled the chemical equipment, CBurn equipment, which is terrible. If anybody's ever had to do that, you have to do inspections on the gas mask, and by the time you're done with all the inspections, you have to start the inspections over again. So that was my life for a while. So we had just kind of made the transition back to Med Command becoming their own MSC versus being at Joint Force Headquarters and all that. So we really started, hammering out inspections and things like this. So the command was coming down to do inspections, and I used to smoke, and they say everything that you meet the best people of your life at a smoke pit. I don't know if anybody's ever heard that, but I was out back smoking one day, and the MSC was there to do an inspection. And there's this guy standing there smoking, and we just got chatting. He was a medic as well, and he worked at he was a Fed Tech at Med Command, and he was talking about this program he had started. The Army had mandated classes, and this is what he was doing. This is what he was hired to do. And I said, "Oh man, that's cool. Like, I teach on the civilian side. I've always had a big interest in teaching. That was before I joined the military. I was going to become a teacher, a history teacher. Surprise. Love history. But, we just got chatting, standing back there. But out back of the armory at the smoke shack, and he's like, hey, you know, I know you're busy with the Cree mission and you're here and there and everywhere all the time. He was like, but here's my dates. Tell me when you can come help. And so I'm not doing anything this week. Let me talk to my supervisor, make sure she's cool with it. And she's like, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, go help. And so I went and talked for the first time, and I was like, oh, this is kind of fun. I kind of like this. And then I kept going back to help. And then the C2CRE mission was coming to an end, and some, you know, ADOS money was drying up. You know, they're taking all that away from you. And I got an offer from Med Command to come on to a full-time order ADOS to instruct and help with this course. And so I started, and in 2019, the guy that had recruited me, he had become AGR in that 2 years and the position we were in, and he left. He went on to do better things. He actually went to Fort Bragg. They have Mystic and bigger programs there, and he was going to run as a civilian contractor, and he got to grow a beard and all that stuff, you know. So that's what he wanted to do, and he did it. So I had actually come off of ADOS orders, and I went back to work at EMS, and I was I can't remember. I think I was the best warrior, actually. I was providing med support, and my first sergeant walked up to me and handed me a set of orders, and he said, hey, congratulations, you're coming on orders until we can find a replacement for this guy. I said, okay. He said, are you going to apply for it? I don't know. I said, I really don't know. I don't know if this is what I want to do. I don't know if I'm ready to leave EMS yet, and all the stuff I was doing out there. I was like, I still have a lot more time and a lot more things that I want to do. And I thought about it a lot, and I sat down. I was living in Charleston, or down that way, and jobs up here, and my daughter is up here. So I was like, you know what, this is probably what's best for us. So I applied and I boarded, and I got it in 2019, and so I've been there ever since, and just constantly growing this thing, this idea, this started as, I remember in 2017 we would me and the other guy would go around, and we go to Fort Jackson to the Army Reserve Center and talk to the medical unit there and just be like, hey, y'all have any expired supplies that y'all are going to throw away? And they'd be like, yeah, there's a tri wall full back there. Y'all mind if we go dive through it real quick? And we're just finding stuff to make this class work because it was still in its infancy, and it was still basically being trialed. And so we stuck with it, and we've grown it to astronomical lengths in comparison to where it was started in 2018. This last physical year, we had a perfused cadaver lab, which is a huge accomplishment. So that's just stuff that you don't see in training, man. That's good stuff, and it's just kind of humbling to think about it. 5-6 years ago, we were diving through trial walls to get expired supplies to make class happen, and then last year we had North American Rescue here giving a perfused cadaver lab. So yeah, that's how I got on that. It just kind of fell there. The stars aligned perfectly, and they have ever since. Has it been easy? No. It's been a lot of rough days, that comes with the territory of, everybody knows you. You're the face of medics, and it's kind of, I never wanted to be that. I love teaching, and what drove me through that first block was there was nothing like this when I deployed, and I was 20 years old, and my boots stepped onto the dirt of Afghanistan with the thought process that the Army gave me everything I need, and it humbled me really quickly. So I set a personal goal to make sure that I did it then. Anybody, as I grew as a leader, that fell under me, that I would not allow them that to happen to them. And then the stars align perfectly for me to be able to do it statewide and have people with me, a team that has a very similar mindset.
So, yeah, it's awesome to hear those kind of stories because, like I said before, everybody comes from somewhere different. And like when I enlisted, I was an MP. And somehow that led me to public affairs, which is what I really wanted to do. But the way that it lined up, like it gave me all of these experiences and opportunities. So I love that you're here telling us your story because I think before we really didn't get into that a lot. I think it was just more of like medics overall and the training that you guys do and all that kind of stuff. But one thing you did mention that I did want to ask is Best Warrior. That's one of our like biggest events of the year. We're always out there. You're always out there. Well, the medics are out there because they're there as medics, but then also you guys run lanes and stuff like that. So can you kind of talk about the dynamic of that? Because, I mean, it is a big process. And typically the medics, as far that I've seen, haven't really had to do too much real world stuff, except for last year I remember somebody had to get an IV in the field, and I was like amazed because like you see it on TV and stuff, but unless you're around that all the time, you're not used to it, and it's kind of cool to watch. And then this past Best Warrior, when they were doing the Pugil sticks and stuff, and I think 2 people got hurt and like their shoulder was all messed up and stuff, and like just to see the reaction and you guys just go into full medic mode and just like it's just like a switch. Like I kind of want you to talk about that dynamic.
It is a switch, honestly. Like you go from, hey, we're just watching the Pugil sticks to, ooh, ew, I think that guy's shoulder's broke. Like, you know, and then you go into algorithm mode. Like, hey, you know, I got to do this, and this, and this. All right, he answered this. We're going here. We're going over there. Now we're going down. Like, and that's just how it goes. So. I'll start with the beginning of your question, the Best Warrior. We do it every year. In the beginning, we intertwined the medical support and the medical lanes, and we did them both. Well, I say in the beginning when I started doing it, and it was just too much, especially with them staying in the field. I remember, I think it was 2018. We stayed out there in the field with them, and we had a female medic that was supporting with us, so we let her sleep in the FLA, and she ran the heat all night long, and me and another guy slept in one of the connexes out there at the mount site, and I've never been so cold. And so I was going through my aid bag, and I was like, you know, we got these heat blankets in here. And so I get these heat blankets out, and it's supposed to be like 8 hours. This is like a ready heat blanket. It's like 8 hours of warmth. So I flip it out, and I put it in my sleeping bag. It lasted for like 2. And I was like, oh, man.
Was it one of those expired ones that you...
No, it was actually in date, too. It was just so cold outside that it, and then science tells you being inside of a metal box is probably not smart when it's so cold outside. Mm-hmm. But, I didn't think about that then. We eventually broke it off into 2 things, 2 separate entities, but the same, right? Because providing med support for such a, that's such a huge event. Like there's so many moving parts and pieces everywhere. You're going to a range here, you're going to the range there. You're going to be here. You're going to be at the swimming pool downtown at USC. Last year they did the Claymores. They didn't do that this year, which I thought that was the coolest part. But I like when things blow up. But and this range needs to be hot when the soldiers are moving from this range. So we want this range to be hot. Right time they step off the line on this other range. So in order to be hot, you got to have a medic there, but you got to have a medic back here. Oh, by the way, we're doing a 12-mile ruck march in the morning with a memory challenge at the end of it. And we need, 3 medics here, and here, and somebody following. And you're just like, oh, man. When you actually start to, like, dive down into it, it's a lot. It's pretty simple. Like, if you're just, I don't want to say as simple as a competitor because my hat's off to anybody that does that. Like, good job. I applaud you and appreciate you. I don't want to put my body through that, torment for that many days. Maybe 10 years ago, but not now. But when you actually start like trying to do a medical planning for it, so any time that we get a mission per se, or we get tasked to do something that's providing med support, our first job is to basically come up with a health system sustainment annex for an op ward, basically. So it's basically like, okay, where we're going to be, what's the environment like, what kind of injuries may we see, what kind of equipment do we need to pack, is it cold, is it hot, do I need drip drop, or do I need, hot hands, like all these things play into a factor into this. And then when you take it and you're just constantly moving from A to B to a swimming pool where, you don't know if any of these people can swim, or is he just, can he swim? Can he not swim? Okay, he got in the pool and he's not swimming. He's sinking. All right. Things like this, it just makes this animal so challenging. And every year, I think for the last 3 years, it's been run separately from the med support. I still help them and still assist them, and kind of, I'm just there more for what do you call it? Just bounce ideas off of. Just kind of more the mentor side of the house now. Mm-hmm. And usually it's M-Day medics. Some of them are Fed techs, and they run the show, and they run it really, really well. And then we go into the med lanes, which is a beast in its own, especially now in the last few years when we've had the introduction of the expert skills badge, was it expert soldier badge? I said skill badge. We've started to model the weapons lanes, 218th does, and the med lanes off of the ESB standards, because hopefully I hope, and I don't know this, so I can't say for a fact, but hopefully we're working towards the goal of being able to award that at the best warrior. That would be awesome. And I know there's a lot of changes with skill badges and things going on right now, like EFMB and all that, but that really changed the animal up a lot too, from a med lane into a actual combat lifesaver lane. And then over the years of doing it, we've broken it down and we've shredded it apart. And we said, how can we make this better? How can we make this more realistic? And now we have, inside of the med lane, you have 3 lanes. And it's your 3 phases of care. So you go in, you take that contact, you render care under fire, just like the phase is called. And then you pause X that, and you move to the next lane. The next lane, you'll pick right back up where you left off in tactical field care. And then once you're done with that, you treat your patient in that tactical field care environment. You place those more deliberate interventions. You pause X that, you move on to tactical evacuation care, and you pick back up right where you left off. And you call in a 9-line. You mark an LZ with a smoke grenade, All this is happening while there's so much background noise going on. There's smoke. There's RD sims. There's a 50 cal going on. There's somebody shooting, there's Op 4 shooting at you with blanks. You're shooting back, with blanks. And there's so much going on, so much chaos the entire time. But that's what we want, because it's not going to be calm and quiet. Like we used to train back in the day. All right, you just come in. Oh, my buddy's got shot in the leg. Here's a tourniquet. Put it on him. Which is still good, but you have to train like you fight, and that's why we move towards that and towards the ESB standard. Because all walks of life all walks of jobs through the military come to best warrior. So we can't obviously, we can't make it too. I don't want to say we can't make it too challenging, because that's a pretty important part. Like, I feel like if you're the best warrior, you should know how to save your best friend, or anybody's life. So we just follow the TCCC guidelines.
So before we kind of wrap up, because we have been talking for a while, and I'm sure we could talk for hours and hours, because the stuff you guys do is pretty cool and interesting. But is there any advice that you would give to those who are listening that maybe be either interested in becoming a medic or reclassing or just joining in general? Like, is there just any information that you would give those listening or watching?
Yeah, I mean, if we've had plenty of people that have reclassed from other MOSs become medics, and a lot of them really good medics. The reclass school is there, and if you want to do it, just be like, just do it. It might be scary, but it's not, it's not that difficult of a job. But I will say that you have to be a special kind of person to do this job. So before you make that decision to jump career choices and jump MOSs, make sure this is really what you want to do. Go to your local EMS agency or your local fire department, shadow them for a day, ask to do a ride along, and just ride along, see if you like it. If you think this is something that you're going to do, jump into it head first and don't look back. It's a very rewarding career and a great career, but you definitely have to want to do it, because it's, when you're out there and you're actually being a medic, you can't just show up, half ready, because you're dealing with people's lives. So, if this is something you want to do, or you think you may want to do it, you don't know, go talk to your local fire department, local EMS, do a ride along. If you like it, just jump head first into it and do it.
Awesome. Well, we really appreciate you taking the time out of your very busy day. I'm sure that you have a lot of stuff going on, and hopefully we can get out to some of your classes so we can get some footage, because we've done some stuff in the past with you guys and we've created some really cool products. So if you haven't seen those, go check them out on YouTube and kind of see what we're talking about and actually what they're doing in real life type situations. So again, thank you. I'm sure we'll see you around.
Yeah, thank y'all.
Yeah, absolutely. If you guys like this video, make sure you give it a big thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, make sure you hit the subscribe button, and we will catch you guys in the next episode.